Welcome to the City of Merritt regular meeting of Council, Tuesday, February 27th, 2024, 6 p.m. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional and ancestral and unceded territories of the Inca, Kappa, and Siouxsie people. Late items. Do we have any late items? No. Public input. Do we have any public input? No? I'm going to say no. And for those who are following along, Councillor Olgan is joining us on the internet. He's somewhere out in the world, so thank you for being here, Mr. Olgan, your councillor. Adoption of minutes, regular council meeting minutes, February 13th, 2024. Recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on February the 13th, 2024 be adopted. Councillor Egan, Councillor Petrosi, any errors or omissions? I bet we found the same one. Go ahead.
Collettville has 2 T's. It's 3 times on page 10. Collettville's got 2 T's.
Oh, that's not the one I found.
Oh, shoot. I missed something. And also, I think Councillor Olgan
yes, you do.
and myself would like to have noted that on number 7, bylaw 7.1, that both Councillor Olgan and I opposed the adoption of the fees and charges bylaws. We would like that noted.
And also on 8.4, Nicola Valley Women in Action Agreement. Correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Olgan, but you voted in opposition of that, did you not?
No, thank you.
Well, I can't hear you, Manuel. You're oh. Yes, there we got you.
Yes, I voted in favor.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure. Just wanted to be sure. Any other errors or omissions? None? We'll correct the one that we have. Oh, CO? Councillor Hogan?
Yeah, on 8.4, so it was my understanding that council will not okay on the number of the organization.
We did note that.
Well,
You got to put your mic on.
and as well, we thought we would investigate if we could put it forward at SILGA and UBCM.
Something we'd have to raise from the floor.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's totally your call when you get there.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, totally your call. Is that good, Councillor Hogan? Thank you.
Just before we move forward,
Yep.
So for 8.4, it was noted in the minutes themselves, the CIS Council indicated they will advocate to the province for improved victim services funding and encourage women in action to seek additional funding sources. That would include all of that work. Was it the intent to actually have that as part of the resolution? Because that, that was just direction to staff. So
that was direction to staff, yes. And I think for myself, I'm going to write a letter pointing this out with the problems that we're having with council's approval. Okay. And then we'll send that off to the minister, and hopefully we can arrange something at UBCM that we can sit with the minister as well after, and take the information we received and do that. So yeah, we're going to advocate that SILGA, because we've missed the ability to put our SILGA resolutions in now, we can still raise it from the floor. We could do that at UBCM, but I think it's better that we do it at SILGA. That way we don't bypass SILGA, because we want SILGA to support us, and we don't want them to think we bypass them. So that's what we're going to end up doing.
Okay.
So I will write a letter, and then I will let council have a look at it, and they can add to it what they want, and then I will send it off to the appropriate minister or the appropriate area, and then we can raise, Councillor Egan can raise from the floor at SILGA.
Okay.
And if it gets passed, then Councillor Egan will talk at UBCM as well.
Okay. So our understanding is that what we're changing in the minutes then is Collettville with 2 T's in 3 places, and then changing the vote outcome to note that voting against was Councillor Olgan and Councillor Charney for item 7.1. So those are the changes that are being made.
I think that's, yep, I think that's what we're looking at.
Correct that. Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Look at people actually do read their minutes.
I love
Thank
it.
you. General matters, delegations and recognitions. Merritt Hospice, Ms. Jill Sanford, Chair, Merritt and District Hospice Society. Will. Oh, did we
just
vote?
need to vote on the minutes as amended.
I'm sorry. All those in favor? Opposed? Getting ahead of myself. As we get, Richard.
We could still submit a late request for SILGA until the 29th of February
Okay.
if we did want to do that, but we'd have to, well, we have 2 days left.
Oh, I
If
did
we
not know
did
that.
want to make that a motion, or do you still want to do that from the floor? I'm in favor, like, I accept the minutes.
I can get a
but-
hold of Allison and see what would work the best. I mean, it's going to be a little late, but I mean, we can, it's going to have to be crafted fast. Yeah, so we could, if we have 2 days, then we'll try and get it done.
I know Councillor Egan's excited to make a motion from the floor so that she can speak.
Absolutely.
Like, you can just see the excitement in her face.
Then we'll just leave it there.
But, or we could still do that, just
What-
saying.
Let's just see what we can get written up and out.
Okay.
Now we voted? Yeah, thank goodness. I must be getting old. It's the heat. So, okay. So now we will move on to general matters, delegations and recognitions. Merritt Hospice Society, Ms. Jill Stanford, Chair, Merritt and District Hospice Society, will present. So Jill, I'll get you to push the red button in front of you. There we go. And then just pull the mic right down when you sit down. 'Cause if there's a
I
chair there.
don't think I can sit down.
Okay,
I think I'm too short.
okay, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for inviting us to come and speak about Merritt Hospice. We've been a registered society since, I'm not sure when, the late 70s. We lost our records in a fire, and although I was involved with the original starting of hospice, I'm too old to remember when we started it. So we've been involved, we've been an entity in Merritt for many, many years. We are, so we're a registered charity, and we're a member of the BC Hospice Palliative Care Association. We have trained volunteers who support people at the end of life and support people who are grieving. And our job is to be there. And my friend sitting beside me here, Carol, says she, as a retired home care nurse, would run around and do all these things and get all the orders and do all the phone calls and get permissions for this and that. And eventually the patient would pass away. And in the paper is thank you to everybody in the Sun. Thank you to Merritt Hospice volunteers, and not a word about what the people who worked in the system said about. So that really, what the takeaway from that, and what Carol has often said, is that we're there. We're just, our job is to be there. So we don't have to worry about anything else. We're there for the people, the person who is dying, their family, or the people who are grieving. We also support grieving people one-to-one or with our Living with Loss group, which has recently been reorganized. And actually, we had our group in the newly furnished sacred space next to our office, and it was a wonderful place to have it. I've been involved with the Living with Loss groups for many, many, many years in various locations. And that had to be the very best one we've ever done. And there was actually one lady that came in, was a little frightened or nervous to be there. She sat on one side, and as we went through our Living with Loss group and I spoke a little bit, she would move a little bit closer. And when we finished, she actually moved right into the center where the coffee tables are. And she said, "Oh, wow. Now I realize that I'm really not going crazy. I'm okay." And I thought, I'm almost crying right now thinking about it. That's what we're all about, is helping people. We also have a death cafe, which just seems like a very strange name, but it's there to have it's short get together to talk about life and death, helping people to become more comfortable talking about death and grieving. And we aren't. Our Western societies certainly aren't, but we are not comfortable with death and dying. I have to say, in our own home, we talked about death and dying all the time because of me. It just was part of life. And it used to be. When people were on ranches and living out in the country, the body might even be in the living room for a few days. And the First Nations people do treat it as part of life and death. We have a lot to learn from them. Right at the moment, we have 7 client volunteers, 5 awaiting training. It's kind of hard to get training because it's a 20-hour, it's 20 hours of somebody's time, but it's really necessarily to learn all the ins and outs of hospice. And for many years I taught it, but I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. The Death Cafe, by the way, is a get-together to talk about life and death. I did talk about that, but we're just trying to make it normal. It is normal. It's hard, it hurts, and you have a lot of strange feelings, but it is normal. Volunteers also set up tables for events, the street mall, for instance. We decorate the hospital at Christmas. We make care bags for people who have recently been admitted to either the hospital or Gillis House as palliative care. And everybody's in a tizzy, and they have just little things like hand lotion and a little toothbrush, toothpaste, and some reading material. We have a coloring book and a few crayons because that can be soothing. So there's all kinds of items in the bag, and they are available both in the hospital and at Gillis House. I do meet occasionally with an informal group who would really like to see a hospice house here in Merritt, or at least designated beds attached to a facility, to an existing building. There's no plan, it's not anywhere near any campaign to get a hospice house here, just talking about the feasibility of it. We do a lot of public education around death, dying, and grieving. Our biggest push in the last couple of years has been advanced care planning workshops. We've done articles in the paper regarding the grief of a disaster. When we talked about the floods and fires, I put a couple of articles in the paper. Over the summer and fall, we did continue 3 advanced care planning workshops for each of Shacken, Siska, and Cooks Ferry at their request. Those are about a 7-hour day, never mind the preparation, so that's all volunteer time. I did speak about the sacred space, but the recently furnished space adjacent to our office, it can be booked through the front office. It is interior health space, furnished by the Doctors of BC. And so it can be, but hospice has booked it on Wednesdays and Thursdays because we're in the office. We try and only open the office to visitors on Thursday morning. Other times we're there to get our bookwork done. But we can be somewhat flexible. I have to say that after talking to some of the staff at the hospital, that space has been used a couple of times for debriefing after a serious incident in the emergency. So I'm really glad to see, and it worked really well. I'm really glad to see it. We have finished a 6-week Living with Loss group. As I said, we were in there. It was a great place to have it. It has also been used by staff for family support after serious incidents other than any major one. And we're also currently babysitting the airphone. We really enjoy that. It gets lots of attention. It stimulates a lot of conversation about grieving. We get funding from Interior Health, a small amount, about 3 or 4 hours a week for bookkeeping and that kind of thing. We get a gaming grant, and the Nicola Valley Health Care Endowment Foundation is also a major supporter. We also received a very large donation, not this past fall, the year before, to do specifically to do strategic planning. The strategic planning sort of got waysided a little bit when we had to leave our original building and move up to the hospital, find new digs and move. But it's back on track. It's finished, and we finished it in September, and we're now working away on that plan. We have a shoestring budget, but it's adequate, and what we really need is volunteers. But as the volunteers who work with clients must have the training, and that's a standard throughout British Columbia, probably throughout Canada, but throughout British Columbia. And the course is pretty much the same everywhere. It's in 2023, we supported 68 individual clients. Those volunteer hours have not yet been fully computed because the volunteers haven't given them all to us. We have our annual meeting next month, so by then we'll know, but it's thousands of hours. We really appreciate the support that we have had in the city from the city in the past, and thank you very much, and thank you for giving me a chance to talk about hospice because I love to do it. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Jill. Just wanted to say thank you for always the invites for when you opened that room and on your grand opening. It was enjoyable to be there, and it's really starting to look amazing with the new furniture and everything, and I'm really glad it's there. Council. Paul, Council.
Thanks, Jill. So you've got a total of 12 volunteers, I guess 7 now.
I'm sorry, we have 19 volunteers.
19.
The other 7, and I shouldn't diminish that. The other 7 are not client volunteers. They will do all kinds of things for us. Like my husband behind me here helps set up tables and ferries me around here and there for various things. So no, that's all. We only have 7 right at this moment. We only have 7 people who are actively available to be client volunteers.
Right.
And so it's very likely that those people may have as many as 4 clients at a time. And I look after assigning those, so I really try and not give them too much work at once.
So speaking of the Death Cafe, I read that on your website and I went, what is that? So your volunteers, and then you ask people in the community that are...
We have advertised it in the paper. It has been somewhat of a success. We've held 2 sets of 3. It's a concept that came out of, I'm not sure where it came out of, maybe Carol knows, but anyway, the idea is that if we talk about death, or if we say, I remember even when I was working at the hospital, and that was still nearly 40 years ago, some of the staff and one of my supervisors would say, did you know that person died? They couldn't say it out loud. So that's what we're trying to help people feel more comfortable with, because it's part of life.
Right.
And I remember, I shouldn't be telling you this, but when I first started at the hospital many years ago, when did I start? 69, I think. A gentleman died who had a large family, probably 10 or 12 children and aunts and uncles and whatever. Well, I don't think he had too many aunts and uncles still alive because he was an older man. And he died. We knew he was dying, and I let his family go in. He happened to be in a single room, and I took his family all in there. I thought, well, nobody told me I couldn't. So I got into a lot of trouble for taking them in there, because why could you do that? They don't need to see a dead person. Well, they did. They needed to see that person and say goodbye. And I guess even before I learned more about hospice, somehow I knew that. So anyway, that's enough about me. I'm here about hospice.
Okay,
Don't ask too many questions,
Great.
because I'll just go on and on.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Charney.
Thank you for the presentation. I'd like to thank you and Carol and all of your volunteers for the work you do with Hospice Society. As you say, it's a topic that a lot of us don't want to get into, and so we avoid it. And maybe having these open discussions is going to make people more comfortable with our final process, because we all end up there, whether we like it or not. But anyway, thank you for all of the work that you do.
Thank you.
Councillor Richard.
Thanks for the presentation. I was just wondering, the hospice beds that we don't have, does Gillis have palliative beds then? And there's quite a difference between the two?
Gillis has 2 rooms that are used. They're out of the regular rota of admission. So they're there for 2 reasons. One of them is they try to keep, if at all possible, for palliative care clients. The other one is often used for pathways to home, but it can also be used for palliative care. Pathways to home is when somebody's had an injury and they need a lot of physio and rehab to get themselves ready to go back home, particularly somebody's living alone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Olgan.
Hi, I just want to say also thank you so much for the information provided. I feel that the biggest challenge to approve is creating is the need of years.
Thank you, Councillor Olgan. Any other questions? Again, Jill, thank you very much for your
Okay, thank you.
presentation. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, all your staff. Thank you, Mr. Stanford.
Thank you for bringing me.
Moving on, 5.2, Interior Community Health Services. Ms. Sadie Hunter, Interior Community Services, will present. Sadie, I'll just get you to push that button in front of you, and you are live. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here. So we're Interior Community Services, and I'm joined here by my colleague, Susan Kell. She's a program coordinator for Community Living Services, and Angela Ross, program coordinator for Family Support. And I heard them whispering that they might actually also volunteer, so I just gave them away.
Come to the mic and say that.
So my colleagues here are the subject matter experts with their program, so I'll be inviting them up to speak in a little bit more detail when we get to their program areas. I'm excited to be here today. We're just here to provide a little bit of information about Interior Community Services. We formed as the amalgamation of 2 Kamloops nonprofits. So we're just on the 3rd slide, which was a home support focused nonprofit and youth services. So that happened in 2003. It's okay. So 2023 was actually the 20th anniversary of amalgamation for Interior Community Services in Kamloops. We currently have almost 200 employees across a number of communities in the Thompson region. So we have locations in Merritt, obviously, Kamloops, Barrier, Chase. Probably forgetting we have housing in 100 Mile. These guys will help me out if I forgot one. And we deliver over 40 programs supporting ages from prenatal to seniors, to families, individuals with diverse abilities and youth. So pretty much a full spectrum of programs. If you had a chance to look at our website, or if you take a look at the annual report that we brought in, you'll see that we touch on a whole breadth and depth of services across a variety of populations. So in Merritt, we started providing family support services, so the next slide, in 2013 in partnership with other agencies at Kootley. So we currently are still located in an office at Kootley, and we also purchased an office on Granite in 2022, which we're currently expanding. So you've probably seen some work going on there, and some of our vans parked on Granite with some pylons. So that's what's going on there. After 2013, in partnership with those agencies, we started adding some programs and services. So in 2014, we added community inclusion and helping beginnings, and we moved to CMS for a while. 2016, we added the CYSN program, so that's children and youth with support needs. 2020, we brought on Better at Home, which is funded through United Way. And then in 2021, the Mosaic Day program, which is Community Living BC. So the main program areas that are supported in Merritt on the next slide are the family support services, which is primarily funded by the Ministry of Child and Family Development, there we go, and Community Inclusion Mosaic Day program, which is funded by the Community Living Society of BC. And I'm going to invite my colleague Susan up to speak about community living services in more detail.
Thank you. So I'm Susan Cowell. I'm the Programme Coordinator for Community Living Services here in Merritt, and I currently oversee 2 programmes, and obviously, like Sadie said, we're based at 2040 Granite Avenue. So we have Day Programme and Community Inclusion, and they both come under the umbrella of Community Living Services. And as you can see from the slide, we have currently 23 participants across both Day Programme and Community Inclusion. And both programs are community-based for adults 19 years and older with exceptional needs and diverse abilities, and all are connected through CLBC. We also collaborate with STAD, which is Services to Adults with Developmental Disabilities, for youth aged 16 to 24. And in the past, we've been able to transition straight from grade 13 in the high school into ICS programs. So Day Programme, which is a group environment, runs Monday to Friday, 9 till 3, and Community Inclusion runs Monday to Friday, 9 till 6:30, depending on the needs of the individual, as some participants work or attend other programs. And within these 2 programs, ICS currently employs 7 staff, and 8 including myself. So all the participants receive monthly schedules of activities. And some examples of the regular weekly activities include swimming, bowling, accessing the library, and on a monthly basis, activities include volunteering at the food bank, curling, and a monthly street area cleanup. So in town, both CI and Day Programme utilise the pool at least 3 times a week. And this month, everyone went curling for the first time. We also attend bowling every Friday. And since December, both programs have been utilised in the kitchen at the Civic Centre twice a month for cooking lessons and healthy food prep. And plus, we use the gym at CMS, usually twice a month, for indoor gym activities during the winter months. And during between the months of April and November, the Day Programme participants carry out their monthly cleanup. We mainly do around the mobile gas station and Dollarama, and we end up collecting at least 2 to 3 large bin bags on every visit. Sometimes they're very lucky and they'll find $10 or $20 floating around, which always brings a smile. Some of the other CI participants volunteer weekly and monthly at the library and the food bank. Both programs enjoy many trips out of town, and in 2023 we visited Desert Hills, we had movies in Kamloops, we went to the wildlife park, we also joined up with ICS Kamloops for seasonal parties and swimming at the tournament pool. And also in October 2023, ICS held the first annual Chilean Coats event at Merritt Square, which I know some of you actually came along and had a cup of hot chocolate and a bowl of chili. So staff and participants donated a large amount of the warm clothing, alongside very generous donations from CNA and Inkalakmuk Health and the local community. Alongside providing items of warm clothing, we were also able to provide a pot of warm chili and a hot drink, all served up by the staff and participants. And on that note, I also need to recognise that the ability to provide the quantity of food and drinks we did that day, was partly due to the help we received from other community partners, including Kukuli Cafe, Save-On Foods, Boston Pizza, to name but a few. And we have 2024 Chilean coats in the pipeline, and it's going to be bigger and better than last year. So come along and see us when we do our advertising. Everyone in day program and community inclusion benefits from the strong relationships and collaborations we have developed within our community and within our community partners. And our hope going forward is to increase these relationships. We continue to grow both programs here in Merritt. And with one of those community partners, CNA, we've arranged to have a table at Indigenous Day in Rotary Park, where the participants will be showing off some of their craft skills and hopefully explaining to people what interior community services is all about. And then finally, with the renovations and extensions on our premises well underway, we hope to invite the community to an open house during the month of October, which is designated as Community Living Month. And obviously it is a very important month to everyone at ICS because this is the umbrella that we all fall under. Prior to the open house in October, we are planning to hold an event called the Great Big Coffee Morning. And it's potentially going to be in June, and we'll be inviting the whole community to come along and have a cup of coffee and taste some homemade cakes or biscuits at no cost, but a donation would be gratefully received. And all monies raised would be split between ICS and a community program in Merritt, but not that it's been decided yet. So it'd be lovely to see everyone in June. Come along, have a cup of coffee, come and have a slice of cake. So thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them at the end of the presentation. And I'm going to hand over to Angela.
Thank you for inviting us to come and share our life with you. So the Family Service side is an outreach program. So I have 3 staff, full-time staff, and it's outreach because the staff can go into families' homes or meet in the community or in our offices. It doesn't matter where. So we have 6 programs that we run through Family Services, and the first one is called Family Preservation, and it's their most intensive program. It's for families who are at risk of having their children removed from the home. So our referrals for that come from MCFD, and it's a 6-week program, and we're able to go into the family's home for 10 hours a week. And so it's 6 weeks, and hopefully by the end of 6 weeks, the family has been able to make some changes and do what they need to do to meet their goals of having a healthy, happy family, or at least on their way. And then after 6 weeks, they can go into the second program, which is called Family Services, which is 3 to 6 months. And again, the service that the staff provide is based on the family's goals and the family's needs. And referrals do come from MCFD, and we're a little bit different from Kamloops, that we can have self-referrals or community referrals. So say there's a teacher that notices a family might be in a bit of distress, they can let the family know that we exist, and they can self-referral. So that's just another avenue that families can receive support from. And another program we have is supervised and supported visitation. So if a family is in distress and they're split up and one of the parents is deemed by the ministry or through the courts that they're not safe to be with their children alone, we provide visitation services. So staff will go in and support the visit, and it's usually 2 times a week, up to an hour and a half. It could be a bit shorter depending, like toddlers, it's really hard to keep them active for an hour and a half. So it depends on the child's needs as well. Another program we have, which is pretty exciting, it kind of goes along with Susan's program, is Children and Youth with Supportive Needs. So there's 2 rivers of access that families can have for their children. One is a group situation where the children come and it's leisurely and it's fun and it gives the children opportunity to engage with peers and also opportunity for staff to help them to develop their life skills and their social skills. And the other one is when a child is enrolled in our program, it's from 0 to 18. So anytime, I'm not French, anytime in their lifespan, they can access services, or they could do a one-to-one for a short time. So say a student at school needs to learn how to take the city bus to school, for example, that we can go in and teach that, or yeah, whatever the need is. It's different for everybody, right? So that is Children and Supportive Needs. The other one, oh, I'm so excited about this one. And if any of you have teenagers, send them our way, because we have a teen center, but we're trying to be really cool. So we're calling it the Iron Mountain Youth Lounge. So it's based at Granite in the building that we're renovating. And it's on Friday nights from 3:30 to 6:30. And it's just a really safe place for kids to come. We have all the regular games. We have pool table, we have foosball. If it's teens, there's some kind of food there. And they can come hang out with their friends, be on their iPads. We have one of those, what do you call those games on the TV anyway? Thank you. So we have an Xbox, and there is staff there that if the children have a question or a need or want help accessing other services, like maybe learning how to get the driver's license, we can help them figure out how they can do that. Or it's just so if you have teens in your life, send them down. So that would be great. And the last program that we run at this point is a Youth Justice Case Aid. So when there's a youth who's been involved in the justice system through the courts, and they have to fulfill some community service hours, or the judge says that they need a curfew. So we provide curfew checks. So we will go to the house randomly 3 times a week, and at whatever curfew times they have, just to make sure they're home. And also 1 phone call a week. And we randomize those because kids are so smart, they'll figure out, it's Wednesday night, they're not coming. Well, we might. So that's our programs. And in the last year, we have, in family service and preservation, we have been able to support 34 families in our community. And so I'm really hopeful with that. It just shows me that the need is great. And families are changing and they are moving and they are becoming healthy. And so that's such, it's a gift to watch that process happen. So that's family services. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, Sadie.
It's fine. I mean, these guys already touched on what we're looking forward to in 2024. So the expansion at Granite should be complete hopefully in June. Open house probably in October, as Susan mentioned. Second annual Chili and Coats also in October, and then the Iron Mountain Youth Lounge is currently closed during renovations right now. But once those are complete, then we'll be able to open up the space again and invite youth in. We're really hoping to grow the program and connect in with the school district and invite as many youth as possible as we can support. And if there's any questions, we're happy to answer. These guys will probably be the ones to
Councilor
answer.
Petrosi.
Just on the Better at Home, we've got quite a large population, 65 and over. Have you got numbers of how many?
No, I don't have those numbers. I can get them to you though.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think right now, I want to say it's around 20. It was pretty quiet over the winter, so
Yeah.
there was not as many who were in need, but we're looking to expand that program, and we're in the process of, the position is currently vacant for us in Merritt, so we're looking to hire for that within the next couple of months. So that will also help us be able to grow the program and do some more outreach in the community and support activities like a seniors tea.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
And one other one, the youth justice. You said you do checks.
Yeah.
What if you find them breaching
Okay, so what
conditions
happens?
or things like that?
Yeah, so what happens, I go and I knock on the door and I'm looking for Susie, and I need to have eyes on Susie. And if Susie doesn't come to the door, I don't do anything, but I do go back in the morning and email the youth parole officer and say, so-and-so is not
Okay.
compliant. And then that's the parole officer's
duty to
follow through up
Right,
on that.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome.
Can't trust anybody named Susie.
Oh, do you know a Susan?
Whoops, Susan. Councillor Charney.
Gee, I'd like to thank you for that presentation. It was excellent, excellent information. And I really have to say hats off to you all, because you are dealing with diverse situations, and some can be very complicated and challenging. And so I kudos to you for all of your work that you do in the community. Thank you.
Councillor Egan.
Yes, I agree. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm just curious. I mean, I've been in Merritt for a long time. I'm wondering if is this a new program, or is this a continuation and a change of name for Merritt District Youth Resources? It was Youth and Family Resources.
Merritt, is it okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Merritt Youth and Family Resources did do a lot of the same services, and then like every other contract in the world, it came up to bid, and ICS bid on it. So
Okay.
that's
Okay.
yeah. So yeah. 2014, yeah. Yeah, it used to be called. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah. We're not well known in town.
I think it was because we were up in CMS for nearly 7 years before the flood, and then we left because the school board needed it back, so we were kind of at the far end of town and not as noticeable, and I don't think we saw as many people as we do now.
Well, it sounds like you're reaching out and targeting a lot of various groups. So kudos to you all. Yeah.
Councillor Ogan.
Thank you. So it's so good to hear
To the pool, and they have a great time, and everybody loves to see them there, and they absolutely have a blast. So thank you to all the people that make that happen for them. And I stop by every once in a while. I did the Chilean coats, and then I stop in the office every once in a while to see how things are going. And as you've sat with me once or twice, and we've talked about stuff. So thank you for all the time that you put towards us. I do appreciate it. So thank you. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for the information. 6.1, unfinished business, compost facility. Now, this item is referred to us from the August 22nd, 2023 regular council meeting, and we do have 3 recommendations that are sitting in front of you there, and you do have your report in your package. I've read it, and I've talked with Mr. Green about this, and I would like to push the recommendation 1 forward, and the only reason that I'm doing that is because one of the things that bothers me is the part where it says simply contracting out our facility to process only local biosolids was not the intention of the RAFOI, and also the fact that if we did put this out, then we can't control what comes in and out of that spot as far as what goes in, and that's already a fairly controversial places we have it as well. So For myself, unless, and it's open to the floor, just open it for questions, but I would like to push recommendation number 1 at this point, and then continue to look to see what that would look for us in the future. Councillor Charney.
Okay, I assume this is Mr. Green that we're...
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Green, I always love to grill you. First of all, where are the biosolids picked up? Is this at City Works? The truck goes to the City Works, picks it up and hauls it up top?
You're on.
Red is on.
You're on.
Thank you. Yeah, so right now they're processed obviously down at the Public Works yard. They go into a truck that fits in sort of the bay that they're processed into. So the truck's generally sized for the load that we need. Gets hauled up to the compost site and then processed into either topsoil or compost.
Okay, so it says that the contract hauling is an option but there is a problem because the larger trucks will not or cannot be accommodated at the, okay. So what would be the cost to make sure that we could accommodate larger trucks?
Well, when you think about the overall operation, it's probably more of a moving of people that we were trying to use in other ways or reduce the requirement of, that would then be shuttling material in the yard instead of out there. I mean, it's still going to take time, probably not as much time, obviously, as the processing at the facility, but we're going to have to take the material from the actual hopper area at the yard, get it out into another loading environment where you can haul it with a truck that actually, that will haul more efficiently. Sorry, the bigger the truck, obviously, the more efficient you are, and a private operator is going to want to haul more at one shot. So you got to have a place to store it, and you got to have ability to load it into the larger trucks so that they can move it more efficiently. Right now, we move it with a fairly small truck. It's only like a 10-ton tandem. I'm not even sure it's a tandem. It might just be a single axle, but it's a small truck.
So if we, like number 1, it says lease and operate the current. So if we leased, so I'm a little confused on what number 1 means. But if we had a contractor come in to do all the work, they could get a bigger truck, come to the city, pick the stuff up, and then take it up to the facility and do what they have to do up there.
Yes and no. This is mostly about the operation of the facility itself, the compost facility, and whether or not we want to continue that operation. Getting it from the plant into trucks into another facility or wherever, that's sort of a secondary to, do we want to operate the facility that processes at the compost site? Do we want somebody else to operate our facility and try and make a for-profit out of it where they might be bringing in more material and expanding the size of it? Or do we want it hauled completely out of town to a different facility in a remote area?
Okay, so option 1 is lease and operate the current. So number 1 is not city operated. It is leased out.
No, option 1 is that council directs staff to plan the continued operation of the compost facility as a city operation and propose required site improvements in annual budgets.
Yeah, there's three recommended motions there.
Okay, I was looking at number 1 on page 2.
Right.
There.
So largely we're at that, obviously that point of all the services that we asked about are available to us one way or the other. So we're before we start down a path of looking at 4 or 5 or 6 different ways of dealing with things, we're back to the question of, do we want to have a facility in town? Do we want to have an operating facility in town? And are we the best ones situated to operate it? I'm starting to get with the impression with the way this is working that it's probably just gonna, if we have somebody else doing the work for us, it's probably just gonna shift time from the people in the operations side, possibly to people in the office side, trying to keep something running and managed. So I'm not sure anymore whether or not this is going to do us much good manpower wise. And we have to assume right now with all the options that it's going to be cost neutral. It's going to cost us money to get rid of our biosolids and process them. The exact numbers, we're in that $200,000 to $300,000 a year range of cost with a 25% margin of error on that right now, depending on where the proposals come in for direct services. And then you also have that, obviously it's going to be for profit. So what we pay to have somebody else do this, we would save in manpower, but we're going to pay more for the actual service of hauling and processing our biosolids. So the money side of it's not really the issue right now, and really hasn't been. It's the bigger picture of, do we want to have a operating facility in town, and do we want to operate it ourselves?
Councillor Richard.
I think I agree with the mayor with the option one, that council directs staff to plan the continued operation of the compost facility, and for the only reason that if we are trying to have it leased out, what happens if the other facility decides to cease operations and then we end up with it back and we're not prepared for it? I know that we have to do upgrades there, and as we've mentioned in the past, we still have to spend the money to do the safety upgrades anyway, even if we lease it out. It just, maybe I was wrong in understanding that.
So, that was somebody has to do the upgrades to the site. Yeah. The benefit of a lease over something where we take the site apart and get rid of it is, if that entity does fail and turn it back over to us, we have our site where we can carry on again. So that's probably the more preferred option as far as us not running the facility at all. If we decommission that site altogether, reclaim the site, haul the material to a different town, things change, now we're stuck. We got to do something with it. If we still have a facility that we know about that we can count on, we don't get stuck.
CEO.
And so the director and I have been discussing over the last little bit about this, and I think one of the things we really started to talk about is, giving, with recommendation number one, giving us the opportunity to really build a business case. There is opportunity for us to be the site that other communities bring it to, whether that's something the community is interested or not, but there is an opportunity for some revenue generation. Bigger communities are taking the household solid wastes, like the household organic wastes and biosolids, and creating a product that is marketable. And that's what we need to see, if that's something where we could, as a community, generate some revenue, and what are our options and costs in getting to that place. So allowing us to work through a business case over the next year or so, depending on how much other work we have, which we'll talk about later. This is an opportunity for us to see if there's some revenue generation, and to look at models happening in other places around dealing with organic waste and turning it into a usable, sellable product.
And if I may, on top of that, I've been fielding a number of phone calls regarding interest in disposal companies from the Lower Mainland and other places hauling up here and processing waste through our plant, and then ultimately out to that facility as well. So it looks like there's a bit of a push in some of the larger urban areas to not allow the rural areas to continue use of their plant and facilities. So a lot of the operators are looking for places to haul. So there could be an opportunity, obviously if there is in the private sector, to make money, that there's a revenue option for us as well. We just have to be open to the idea that this is a growth thing, and comfortable with, the conversations that probably happened since that facility was brought in the first place. Of, do we want it in town? Do we not want it in town? Are there environmental concerns, and how do we deal with that? So there's a whole myriad of things going on in this technology these days, and very much like you said, I'm not sure it's time to give it up entirely when we might be able to use it as a revenue source.
Councillor Egan.
Okay, thank you. I think, to me, what it boils down to is, like you say, is it cost effective? If it's a how did you put it, cash neutral position, then if you had somebody else run it, then it would free up some of our employees to do some more work in other areas. I hadn't heard this other little idea of what's going on in the background. That's something to consider as well. And I just want to confirm that we just approved a garbage truck, not a biosolids truck.
Correct.
Okay.
Solid waste collection vehicle. Don't like to use the word garbage.
Well, maybe we should, because it's a different kind of waste. Yeah.
Councillor Hogan.
to that end, if I may, we did follow the instructions and went to the market with a request for expression of interest and determined that all the options were available to us that we could choose from. The ultimate problem with the site is that whether we do the fix up on it that's required or somebody else does, if they do it, we're paying for it in our rates, we're paying for it regardless. The costs of the site aren't going away. This is really still back to that first question I asked you, three different reports back, unfortunately, of is this what we want to do in town? Do we want to do more of it? Do we want to do less of it? And like I said, the cost side of this right now is not on the table because we could see a lot of different things. But what I do know is that the cost to remove our biosolids is going to be there regardless. The question is, what are the opportunities around it to reduce that burden and also enhance the community? So there are options around composting and generating topsoil that, whether it's a commercial venture that's for profit, which is great, that takes our biosolids and does something with them and puts them to a market, that's awesome. But we're still going to be paying a rate to move our material in that environment. I don't see a world where they lease our sites, do all our stuff for free, and bring in a whole bunch more from other places to make their ends meet. It's still going to be a cost to us.
Councillor Charney.
I would really like to have seen some figures of the cost of the Merritt to continue to use the site, or someone coming in to use that site, or someone coming in to pick it up, taking it off site. I'd like to have seen some of those figures, because and another thing, no matter if the city continues to do it or someone else, that road is a real problem.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much you would have to improve that road, but that is a very dangerous road, either for city employees or an outside contractor. So to me, that's one of the biggest deterrents of continuing that site there, is that road.
Yeah, and quite honestly, we have provided a cost. We're in that $200,000 to $300,000 a year range for whatever solution at this point before it's narrowed down to the, dollar basically. The time it's going to take to go to market and explore 5 or so different options is going to take quite some time. It's going to take a lot of negotiating, and I'm not sure we're going to get the results from what I've seen.
Councillor, you can.
Just one more comment. I'm just concerned about the actual location itself.
Yeah.
Not just the road, just the location. I'm thinking we're starting airport improvements and growth of the city, and I understand that our boundaries are fairly fixed, but is there not another location that could be moved to so that it isn't like upwind of the town?
I'm glad you asked that, although it's still going to be upwind of the town, is we have some more suitable property, at least from a site expansion basis, just around the corner on the bottom of the airport as well, where the septic site is. That's probably available to us because we already own it, and it's already a stinky corner, if I might add, because the septic site's already there. So that's a really good option, either from a site expansion, doing a couple of different things, maybe moving the retail product up or the wholesale product up to that area for loading instead of having it down at the bottom of the hill. But yes, that road's going to have to be improved, no question. There may be some logic that says the whole operation moves up onto that upper lands off the end of the airport on the lots that we own that we don't lease out or don't want to lease out, because there's a fair bit of space down there in that corner. It's things we have to, if we want to carry on operations, these are discussions we can have later about the exact location, but there are options right in that same area that we can talk about.
So just so we're understanding, in 2007 when this came forward from two private gentlemen that brought this into, it was called the Good Earth Company at that time, and they brought it in as a revenue generating situation, and it didn't really happen for them. And then we'll all remember the idea of biosolids being brought into the community, the blockades out of Chalouse, the whole bit. So the idea of other community stuff coming here is probably not one we want to breach at this point in time, because it was a bit of a nightmare back then. Councillor Richard.
I think before I would have thought that leasing it out and having a private company try and make a successful business there would have been ideal. But also looking back to the mayor's point about stories of blockades, which I remember, didn't seem like it was that long ago, but when you think that it's been 17 years, I guess it has. Yikes. But with us trying to balance budgets and dollars, and if a business is coming in trying to make profit and overhead, and as we're trying to balance budgets and make cuts and save money, I'm just thinking that if we're trying to run it the most efficiently, if we try and lease it out, I'm just thinking that if anybody comes in trying to operate it, wouldn't we more than likely be paying, 20-25% more just so that they could make a profit to operate? That's what I'm thinking, just after having been through budget. I don't know.
Well, that'd be the entire logic and how the negotiating would go is if somebody wants to come in and do this,
Yeah.
As a private business, you almost have to be open to the idea that they can run their private business and bring material in that's going to make them profitable.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a cost to the city. We're not making money on the site right now.
Paying.
We're not going to make money on the site on the volumes that we're disposing of out there and operating. It's just the volumes are not there to show a plus on the revenue side.
No.
It's a cost to the overall sewage program to dispose of our sewage.
Yeah, and
Right.
and for it to be successful, we'd have to bring in more sewage and more stink and more smell and
That's
more
right.
cost, and a lot more cost. So that's my only concern. That's why before I would think, oh, leasing it out seems like a good idea, but
Yeah, my
pay. Yeah,
My initial look at this thing was I wanted to get out from underneath the hassle of what it is and the staff out there.
Yeah.
And my opinion on the whole thing is swayed a little bit that as we dug into it a lot more, we reviewed the business plan from back in 2007, realized that, that didn't come to fruition either. As far as it being a profitable enterprise, it's maintaining control is getting to be more appealing over the entire investigation. And then we can also have those conversations of, do we want to use it for other things and to the benefit of the community, whether it's financial or other composting waste as well, running through the facility. Yes, it's a smelly thing. Unfortunately, right down to, gardening, composting, sewage, this is all smelly stuff. Yes, it's unavoidable. And we do get spoiled quite a bit by the fact that sewage leaves our houses and everything's taken away nicely. But it all does have to get looked after at some point. It's got to get looked after someplace.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I say that if you don't worry about the cost, because a factor of 25% on $200,000 to $300,000, those are the dollars of cost it's costing us to get rid of the material that we have to, just on the biosolid side. Then it's a matter of how do we feel about the overall process and the operation.
I guess the only reason why I'm debating is last meeting, everybody had such a concern over spending a certain amount of money just for having victim services here that they're going to spend a lot more than that for the compost if we have it farmed out to another company. So I think that that's something to consider. That if we were worried about $35,000 for Women in Action, this is probably going to be a lot more than $35,000. So.
Seal.
Yeah, and I think, I think we have a lot of options. And as the director said, we did that request for expressions of interest because we wanted to know what those options are. So for us to go out and price out now all of those options, to put out tenders for all of those options, that would be a very time-consuming job. And there is some expectation of a contract coming out of those. So if we tender out to all of those options and we don't actually contract out to those options, then we can actually get ourselves into a legal situation where we've breached an expectation that some sort of contract will come out of those proposals. So it's really cautious about how much we do throw out there. Can't just throw it out and hit the dartboard kind of situation. We have to have an actual plan. And I think that, again, this allows us to really look at all of our waste management in the city and how we can reduce how much volume we're taking to TNRD's landfill and what our fees are there, and transition that over to a green waste management system that works alongside the biosolids. And we're responsible for any recovery or closure and reclamation costs on that site anyways. So it's best I think at this point in time, until we see that there's a very clear, different solution, it's best for us to have control of that site and the quality of services that occur on that site, because it does reduce our liability in the future.
Thank you. Councillor Olgan.
I feel that Carolina has not received the clear direction from the council whether we want to keep the site or not. So I believe that a cost analysis will be required, but we have to make the decision whether we want to keep it or not. That it could be for the benefit of the community to give the services and will require the cost analysis, and then we can talk about road relocation and all, but I would like to keep the service.
Thank you. Councillor Charney.
You know, we mentioned that it could be moved. If we're looking eventually down the road to make Merritt a greener community where we have our green composting, and so then we would have to have a facility for that other than the biosolids. So would it be that costly to move the facility up to where you said up by the airport? No, but move it where up top, so they're not going down that road. And I imagine it would be a larger facility. So eventually, if we started doing green composting, that there would be room for that.
Yes, I mean, when you look at the improvements we'd have to do to the site where it is right now to improve road access and whatnot, knowing that we have, our ratepayers coming down that road to collect trailerfuls of topsoil and compost as well. I mean, it's not the best situation to bring public traffic down either. Compare that to the cost of moving, a screen plant and a bunch of stuffing, a load on a trailer and a couple of pieces of equipment. It's not huge. We still have that land mass down there to deal with one way or the other as far as reclaiming it and putting it back to nature if we're not going to be on that site. But these are definitely decisions we want to make before we start running new water lines down to it and whatnot as far as location. My personal feeling is we can do better in a different spot, and we don't have to go that far. But we're at that same question of how big do you want to see it? It's an outside facility right now. We have to provide a workplace for our workers in the way of a trailer and washroom facilities. That's what we're looking at. We're not looking at putting up a big building or anything like that at this point. However, if our overall residential composting program comes into effect and we have a whole bunch of other processing things that we're interested in, this is just spitballing right now, that changes the world. And yeah, the land mass up top of the hill could work very well in an area that's already got some associated smell from the septic site, obviously. So,
well, I think that's what we should be looking at is down the road. We all know that every community is trying to go greener. I even presented the mayor with kitchen composting. I don't know if he's using it.
Yep.
But I think that's maybe a direction that if we're going to keep this facility, I think that maybe we should move the facility, because no matter which facility, you still have to buy the ATCO trailer or whatever to have the washroom, to have the lunchroom. That still has to be purchased and put down. But I think that moving it where we have a bigger area where we can start accommodating green composting, and then start a program in Merritt where we are green composting, so that we can showcase what we have.
And I don't disagree with that at all. I like it. Just be prepared that the location that I brought up is a very visible location compared to where it is right now, and that may have some challenges. In the overall scheme of things, when we did the RFEOI, so the expression of interest to find out what's out there, if we'd have got back something where it said there's only one service available to us, great, we're into tendering that and following that course because there's only one thing available to us. But when we have so many options available, it's like chasing rabbits all over the field, trying to determine who are you dealing with, and comparing apples to oranges all the time, trying to figure out what's in the best interest of the city. Where when there's that much available to us, it really makes you question whether or not we should be looking at doing anything other than continuing the operation.
Councillor Petrosi.
Did you say earlier that there's other communities that are interested in bringing theirs here? Is our site large enough down there to
that site's highly constrained and, as indicated right from the start, quite dangerous in my mind. And coming up with a better location for it that's got good access, that's a little flatter. Bearing in mind, you are bringing it up and making it more visible. Right now, it's sort of the, I hate to use the word redheaded stepchild there, out of the way down the bottom of the hill where nobody can see it. Right?
Out of the way
So,
and dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, so.
Yeah, so just remember that changing the site gets noticed too. However, doing a lot of work on that site is going to be expensive.
Right.
The one that we have now.
And if we do move it, like you said, these other communities bringing it here, I think would be a bonus for us, money-wise, right? It's.
We can,
generates
remembering that's hauling of basically raw sewage from the lower mainland, rural areas up to here when the cities down there are closing things down because they're expanding so much and
right.
and having so much more volume themselves to deal with. So sewage companies are looking for, you know, alternatives to haul, and we're right in the middle of ability to do it. So.
Right, right. Okay, thank you. Councilor Egan.
I would like to make a motion that we, as a council, let's see if I can get the words here. The council directs staff to plan the continued operation of the compost facility as a city operation and propose required site improvements in annual budgets. However, with the idea that we will be looking to move the site to a new location, pending further investigation of site plans, etc.
CEO.
Councillor Egan, could we maybe say that resolution and then direct staff to develop a business plan for continued operation, which would involve identifying the proper sites and costs of that site, as well as whether or not there's any additional revenue that could be generated and how that would look and how we would present that to the community.
Just like she said.
Just like she said.
Yeah.
Can I have a seconder? Second. So we've talked this to death. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you.
It's going on too long.
Number 7. Committee of the Whole Resolutions. Committee of the Whole Report. The following resolution was considered on January 29th, 2024 by Council at the Committee of the Whole meeting. The recommendation that Council approve the following grant and aid requests for 2024. Friends of the Library, $1,000. Merritt Country Run Society, $1,000. Nicola Valley Community Band, $1,000. Rotary District 5060 Youth Exchange, $1,000. Merritt District Chamber of Commerce, $3,000. Merritt District Hospice Society, $1,000. Merritt Breadbasket Soup Bowl Society, $1,500. Merritt Country Christmas, $2,000. Merritt Little Britches Rodeo Club, $1,000. Merritt Snowmobile Club, $1,000. Nicola Nordic Ski Club, $750. Nicola Valley Kennel Club, $1,000. Nicola Valley Skating Club, $1,000. Nicola Valley Community Arts Council, $1,000. Nicola Valley Evangelical Free Church, $500. Girl Guides of Canada, $660.98, very specific. Merritt Centennials Hockey Club, $1,000. Merritt Dance, $787.50. Merritt Otter Swim Club, $1,000. Merritt Volleyball Association, $1,000. Nicola Valley Farmers Association, $1,100. Merritt RCMP Cops for Kids, $1,162. Can I get a second, or can I get a seconder? Councilor Petrosi. Just wanted to thank everybody for working through that and the great input we had on that day and coming to the Committee of the Whole. I appreciate that. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 8.2. Nope. Wait a minute. I missed one. 8.1. Freedom of Information Act Bylaw 2364-2024. Recommendation that that Council adopt City of Merritt Freedom of Information and Protection Privacy Bylaw number 2363-2024. And we kind of moved that through the committee that we run, whatever it was called. That's it, policy review, thank you. So, Councillor Etchart, Councillor Charney, any questions on that weren't raised at when we talked about it earlier? Oh, CAO or CO?
Thank you.
Yeah, not CAO yet, so don't get a big head or nothing.
No. No. Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to point out that before we consider adoption of this, that there is a very small typo. There's a transposition of 2 numbers in this under 2 of the bylaw, where it's got the City of Merritt Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy bylaw. Number 1438 is what it had said. It should have said 1483, so the two numbers were just transposed. So my suggestion is that we amend this at third reading and then move forward with it at adoption. I just wanted to make sure that
Sure.
you all were aware of that before we went forward.
Okay. Everybody okay with that? Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried as suggested. Thank you. 8.2, amending water parcel tax bylaw 2366. Recommendation that the City of Merritt water parcel tax amending bylaw number 2366 be read a first time. Councillor Egan, Councillor Charney, questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Recommendation that the City of Merritt water parcel tax amending bylaw number 2366 be read a second time. Councillor Etchert, Councillor Petrosi, any questions on that? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 8.2, recommendation that the City of Merritt water parcel tax amending bylaw number 2366 be read a third time. Councillor Egan, Councillor Etchart, any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Amending sewer parcel tax bylaw 2365, recommendation that the City of Merritt sewer parcel tax amending bylaw number 2365 be read a first time. Councillor Egan, Councillor Charney, any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Recommendation that the City of Merritt sewer parcel tax amending bylaw number 2365 be read a second time. Councillor Petrosi, Councillor Olgan, looks like you want to say yes, so there you go. Councillor, any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Recommendation that the City of Merritt sewer parcel tax amending bylaw number 2365 be read a third time. Councillor Etchart, Councillor Charney, no questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. New business, 9.1, Tourism Nicola Valley Agreement. The recommendation is that Council direct staff to enter into the Merritt and Nicola Valley Destination Marketing Society, DBA Tourism Nicola Valley Digital Sign Agreement, substantially in the form attached to the February 22nd, 2024 report of the Director of Corporate Services entitled Tourism Nicola Valley Digital Sign Agreement. I need a mover. Councillor Egan, Councillor Petrosi. Questions on this? You guys have had the ability to read that. Councillor, CAO?
I got promoted.
I'm promoting everyone
demoted.
tonight.
I don't know what's happening. Well, does council want to, did we do first and second? A first or a second? Did we do?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so we just wanted to bring this forward to you. As our work with Tourism Nicola Valley moves along, we have given them at this point permission to begin the site work at their own risk, waiting for council to be able to see this agreement. We met with Tourism Nicola Valley directors yesterday, and there are a few minor changes that I don't believe substantially impact the intent of the proposed agreement. The one place where they've asked for council's consideration is around the fee for leasing the land. And this is the part that complicates the process and has complicated the process over the last few months, is that this is public land, and this is it is a not-for-profit society, but our legal counsel identifies it as a business organization, and puts us at risk around how we dispose of land or how we prefer one organization over another. So the original request was to have the land disposed of for $1 a year lease. We've been indicated by legal counsel that that's not appropriate. And if we were to do that, there is a much more involved public consultation process that needs to happen. And it does put us in a position where we are potentially seen as providing financial support to them in a way we might not provide financial support to someone else. So it becomes quite complicated. So we had assigned an amount of $25,000 as a lease amount based on projections that Tourism Nicola Valley was able to provide about what might be the revenue from a sign like this, as well as professional advice from legal counsel who's done a few other of these types of agreements and is aware of the revenue generated by other signs in the interior and the Lower Mainland. So that's, and then we discussed that with Tourism Nick Valley. We thought we were in alignment with that. In our meeting yesterday, they did propose a different method in which to, so they're looking for a $5,000 lease plus 2% of any revenue generated. That could be significantly less, and it may not meet the public's threshold for an appropriate cost. So that's for council to decide.
So one thing we have to understand, because this is new, this is untested here, we don't really know what that number will be. The 25,000 was based on 10% of what the idea what might come through, but we don't know for the 1 year. So I feel comfortable with going with the amended amount and visiting it next year after a full year of operation to see where we are on that and then work from there. Right now, to financially strap this group as they're trying to get this going, it's something that the community needs, and I think it's something that will help us along the way. But I think we need to, like any other fledgling business, we need to help them get to where they can be and be as good as they can be. So I'm more than happy to support what's been altered as far as the payment is.
And can I say, I might amend your comment about fledgling business, fledgling not-for-profit.
Not-for-profit, sorry, yes. So it's a new venture. So it's everything right here is unknown at this point. So let me see my button. Councillor Charney, you're up first.
What is the amended amount?
5,000 plus 2%.
2% of revenue.
Okay, 5,000, okay. Another question, I know that before the sign was going to be put up, there was an issue with financials, financial statements. Has that been resolved?
So we do have some financial statements from the organization. We're still awaiting the most up-to-date one. I think they're just finishing up their auditing process. And I think that more will be more important when we enter into an MOU or an operating contract with the organization to be our destination marketing organization.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Councillor Egan.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to point out here, just for clarification, it says future income for the city from the license of occupation would be negotiated. Then it says the proposed license of occupation would provide the city of Merritt with revenue in the proposed amount of $5,000 for the 1-year term plus 2% of the agreement. Mm-hmm. And then in the next paragraph it says the revenue generated from the sign would go directly to Merritt and Nicola Valley destination. So that means they're giving us $5,000 and we got to give it back to them?
No.
Or
no?
Okay, well that needs some clarification.
Yeah,
and so in whatever you're doing for an agreement.
Okay, yeah. So that's the legal.
Yes.
Legal stuff, but we can make it English. Yeah, so it is that the revenue from the sign goes to them. We never actually touch the revenue until they provide us with their fee.
Okay, so when would they be paying these fees?
Well, I think that's what we'd have to do is we'd have to say that the $5,000 is their base fee that they pay at the beginning of every year so that we get a base fee. And then at the end of the year, once they've had their audited financials, that 2% from that year would come to us at that point in time. So we want to definitely have a base fee that allows us to ensure that we are getting some lease revenue from the sign.
Okay, and the last thing I wanted to say is that this agreement is completely separate from the agreement that the city is preparing to hire them as our destination or DMO.
Yes.
Yes.
This is just for the sign.
Okay, great.
Councillor Petrosi.
Just want to say I'm in agreement with Mayor Getz for the amended amount of 5,000. Thank you.
Councillor Olgan.
Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. I do
Thank you. Councillor Richard.
So this is only for the first year, and I'm wondering, is there a legal opinion on an amount that seems reasonable for the not-for-profit lease amount? Will 5,000 seem like it's quite low in this situation? Will we be looked at and?
Well, if I may,
is it arm's length? Is it?
If I may for a moment, this is, the idea was 10%.
Yeah.
And that's where the 2,500 came out.
Or
25,000.
25,000 came out, based on the idea that, and I'm not going to put words in Greg's mouth, that this sign could generate $250,000 to $300,000.
Yeah.
But that's speculation.
Yeah.
So we won't know until this sign has had a full, complete year of actual operation.
And because of that, and I understand that point and I agree, but legally, like, do we,
This has gone through all the legal channels.
Yeah, so this amount hasn't been discussed legally, but we haven't gotten an amount that we should be asking for, right, like that. But I think, you know,
it's a small space.
it's a small space. It's road easement. It's not. We're not going to use it for anything else. We are collecting a reasonable rent fee per square foot. I think so. I think we're in the right ballpark there. If we're just looking at square footage rather than the value of the sign, which again, you know, some of those signs in the Lower Mainland make $1 million a year.
This is Merritt.
I don't think that we're going to make $1 million a year, but you know, there is a potential for pretty high revenue on these on this
brand
sign.
new, so it's hard.
And I think having it as a year really gives us the opportunity to investigate, and that's why for the first couple of years we had talked. TNV and us and our team have talked about we're going to go year to year at the beginning until we have a good sense of what the outcome is before we enter into our longer term lease. And I think that unfortunately, you know, there are lots of places where the city leases land and has leased land for extensive periods of time at $1 that would no longer stand up today, those agreements.
And that's where I was going with this, because I just don't want it to be seen, well, you went ridiculously low on something which is minimal. And
well, I mean, quite honestly, this is the highest that we've leased to somebody else.
No, I know that.
Yeah, so so I think we're in the right ballpark.
Are you done, Councillor Richard?
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Charney.
I support leasing or renting it out for the $5,000 plus 2%, but I just want to know if we put ourselves in any legal situations, ramifications of another group coming and saying, you've leased this bit of land for TMV and now I want further down and I want a sign. Are we opening ourselves up? Just a question. Are we opening ourselves up for more people wanting signs?
Well, so let's be clear here. We didn't pay for this sign. TNV did.
Yeah.
So you know what? If somebody else wants to come where they have something, they're going to bring something to our community, and we have the ability and the land and everything, sure, why not?
And that's a council discussion, right? He's right. Somebody could bring another proposal to us and council may see the financial benefit to the community, or we do this and people are like, you know what, that's all we need. We don't need all of the electronic signs in the world coming into town, right? We just need this and that's enough. So you know, if we had 20 new companies coming in saying, hey, I want to put electronic signs up, that might be a conversation we're having at the, you know, community engagement level.
Like if you remember when the first one went up in Kelowna, just as you make that big corner going to the bridge, there was a big hullabaloo over that. But now there's 4 of them, 3 years later. So obviously they're efficient at what they do. Councillor Egan.
I was just going to bring up Kelowna as an example, and I wouldn't want our highway to look like that corner, because you know that ruins the whole eyesight of the downtown of Kelowna and the lake.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this has been thought out very well by TNV. They have a plan. This is to drive people down into our community. This is for people who will be able to scan QR codes, have their plans on their phone. They can. So there's a lot of potential here for the signs. So we do have a recommendation that has been seconded, and
So I guess we'd be looking for a friendly amendment to the
friendly
recommendation
amendment
based on the change in the fees.
So I'll make the friendly amendment. Friendly amendment would be the 5,000 plus 2% revenue, and then to be looked at the end of the year. Councillor Egan seconds. Any other questions on that? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 9.2, housing merit proposal. We have 2 recommendations. I'll read the first one off. Recommendation. Oh. Yes. To table 9.2. Do I have a seconder? Okay, have a seconder. So there's no sense discussing the tabling. We'll just, all those in favor? Opposed, and we will table this. Thank you, Councillor Hogan. Table. Just going to mark this down. See you.
Sorry, no, there should be two different houses. There should be two different houses. Sorry, just one moment.
Sure. Moving on, 9.3 EOC Capacity Building Project 2024. Recommendation that council support the attached grant application for UBCM Community Emergency Preparedness Fund EOC Capacity Building, and recommendation that council commits to providing the overall grant management. Councillor Hogan, you look like you blinked there, so I'll take you. Councillor Petrosi, excellent. Questions, concerns on this? I think it's fairly straightforward. Oh, Councillor Charney, your finger's moving. Nope, there's no questions. Well, when I see this, it usually means it's going to go like this, right? So, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. I did both at once. Is that okay? Good. Notices of motion. Notices of motion. Reports from council. Ooh, my voice is cracking. Councillor Egan.
Thank you. So the last couple of weeks have been fairly busy. I went to the chamber regular meeting on the 15th, which has got a rather large contingency this year. There was about 12 people there. Then I went to the chamber meeting that they had for the roundtable, which involved all the economic development and tourism stakeholders in the community. Some weren't there, but they were still included. Went to the breakfast with the city staff this morning. I also had some conversations with various residents of the community. They had some very negative thoughts on Boat Street and the warning sign they've put up, enter at your own risk. Apparently it's at the bottom before you start going through the construction, and at the top up by the hospital for those coming down. And I don't know about that, but they didn't seem to think that they should be having a sign. They should just say, don't use the road, not enter at your own risk. I don't know if anybody else has anything they would want to add to that, but I'll let you say that when it's your turn. And tomorrow I'm attending the Silga Forestry and Wildfire Seminar, which is for about an hour online, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what they have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you. So myself, on the 14th and 15th, I attended the UBCM Housing Symposium by Zoom. It was really informative. Also showed a lot of weaknesses in this, and there's a lot of work to do yet, so hopefully we'll get there. Also, February 15th and 16th, I was at regular TNRD. February 21st, I sent a letter to Minister Ralston on the Aspen Plainers' behalf of coming to talk with some of the stakeholders and try and get some of these permits signed as our UBCM recommendation went through, and we'd like to see that him react to that, so hopefully we'll get something. February 22nd, I was invited to attend the Premier's Expert Task Force by Zoom on wildfire and floods, and gave some of my experiences of what happened here with floods and wildfires. And it is a task force that is realizing that the way fires are fought and the way floods are dealt with now are not in this century, and they're making some changes. So there was a lot of mayors from communities that were impacted, and there should be a large report coming on that in April that you will all get as well. So they've been working very hard on that. February 24th, did the Chamber of Commerce Roundtable, which was really well done. I'm glad everybody was there. I hope to see more of some of the community there as we move on with that, because I think it's very important. And thank you to CAO White for volunteering to have a meeting space and keep that going. I think it's really important that we have that. Today was the staff appreciation breakfast, which I really enjoyed. It was really well done, and thank you to Councillor Etchart and his entire family for doing most of the cooking as usual. So you look really nice in that apron. February 27th, today I was on a Zoom call with Jackie Taggart, IHA President Susan Brown, Vice President Susan Dolinsky, talking about the hospital closure, the 7.5 million allocated and where we are on that. And at this point in time, I've been asked to keep my opinion to myself until the agreement has been approved by the doctors. And once I do, it will be out with the amount that we received and how that's going to look. So that will be coming out as well. So something we'll continue to work on. On the 20th of March, I take the city's request to TNHD for the return of $34,000 for 19 closed days. I've talked to a lot of the TNHD members. They seem to support me in it because 90% of them have had their hospitals closed. So I'm hoping to have good support and bring back good news on that. Gas Buddy, since Councillor Charney missed this last time. Vancouver, today, 183.5 at lowest, 189.9 its highest. Kamloops, 153.9 as its lowest, 159.9 as its highest. Kelowna, 155.9 lowest, 167.9 highest. And Prince George, 146.9 lowest, highest, 159.9. And I forgot to put what we were, so are we 159.9? So there we go. Oh. Anyone else? Excellent. Now, in your package, you have some information items. CAO?
Mr. Mayor, we're just wondering if you council would like to have a discussion about information item 12.1 and maybe some. So this is our update and action plan in regards to the new housing legislation, and I think this is something the public might want to hear some of council's thoughts on, and I think is an opportunity for us also to address potentially some questions that council has in regards to the housing briefing note that also was provided. Oh man, why is it doing that? Can you open that briefing note for me?
Well, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I was a little surprised at what I saw at the housing symposium. I was surprised with the program has been moved as quickly as it has been for short-term rentals, but yet doesn't seem to be a concise plan on how this is going to work. I'm concerned that this is going to end up for every community having to hire people to do this because we simply don't have it. I think the deadlines are a little atrocious. I know there's an option. There's an option for smaller communities to opt out, but there's also the ability for us to ask for an extension. And I think maybe that's something we should start looking at as possible, extending this until, just leave your mic on.
Yeah. So, I mean, the mayor and I both attended the housing symposium and a lot of this discussion and then similar discussions at the CAO forum last week around housing and homelessness and the costs of the whole thing. So ultimately, bills 44, 46, and 47, which are amendments to the Local Government Act, impact our zoning for small-scale multi-unit development in the province. Any community over 5,000 has to implement this new zoning bylaw part. So we have until the end of June. And although we are being told there is the potential to ask for an extension, we have also been told that extension is unlikely to be granted unless it's in extenuating circumstances. So we have to get our zoning bylaw updated by the end of June of this year with these site standards. Then the expectation is we also have to complete a housing need assessment before the end of 2024. And that will have to be done every 5 years. We will also have to do our OCP by the end of 2025, and the zoning bylaw again by the end of 2025, in alignment with the OCP. The OCP has to take into account the housing needs report, specifically in the OCP. So there's a lot of additional work, but in addition to that, we also have to go back and see how this impacts all of our bylaws around development. Our development cost charges bylaw, we have to determine whether or not we're going to implement an amenities cost charges bylaw. So our development services bylaw will have to be reviewed. So what they've done essentially to us is taken all of our work that we were going to do over the next 3 to 4 years in development services and compacted it into a year and a half. And we don't have the internal resources to do this. Now, the problem becomes that every community over 5,000 in the province has to do this work in the same timelines. So one can expect that finding a consultant at a reasonable cost to bring in and do this work will also be extremely challenging. So we have to decide, like our goal, again, is to try and do as much of it in-house as we can because we may not have the cost, the ability to outsource those things. TNRD has a meeting with them and the other CAOs later this week to discuss a cooperative project like we did for the housing needs report last time. But that's going to be a pretty general one, and it may not actually meet our needs as a community overall. So it might be something we get some base data and then we need to develop a strategy around, because that housing needs report doesn't provide action items, right? It doesn't provide us a moving forward strategy. So council may want to consider having a housing and homelessness strategy that we can implement. And I think that's where, you know, it leads into that second housing document that we've tabled around what are the things that we can do and how can we creatively move those things forward, because we're in a different situation than a lot of other communities in that we have some funds from recovery that we earmarked for housing that we can transition into a different housing project, and we have property, both vacant land and those the recovery trailers, the temporary housing trailers that were intended to be sold at the end of 2025. So there's options where we already have some resources that we can start doing some of this work and we can create a local solution, because that's, I think, what's happening is that Housing BC isn't able to get the local solutions that we need. So they're downloading it to us. Now, unfortunately, we're only getting $183,000 to do this work, which, you know, they're calling capacity building. It's going to maybe get us our housing needs assessment and then a bit of money to do another project or a couple of small projects related to this. But again, we're going to be relying a lot of internal resources to get this work done, just to get those bylaws reviewed and updated and the OCP reviewed and updated. And because now every community is going to be on the same schedule for the next however many years, a 5-year review for the OCP and 5-year review for the zoning bylaw, we're going to continually be in this challenge of being able to find, and the housing need assessment has to be done every 5 years. We're going to be in the situation where we're going to constantly be coming up against other communities trying to get consultants to do this work. And again, that builds into the second or the other briefing note around perhaps we need a department or an external arm's length organization that supports these projects unto itself and works with our internal team to do this work in a consistent way. And I know that, you know, there's a lot of questions about how we do this, but we're in a position where we have to do some things and we have resources where we can do some creative things to really address housing and homelessness in our community.
Well, I think we need to schedule a cow for this kind of thing. And also, I'm going to be honest with you, the reason that I'm talking about is extension is because we're still dealing with flood damage and flood recovery. And I think that needs to be taken into consideration. I mean, if the province wants us to move in this direction and they want to buy out all those properties, then we'd be more than happy to have that happen. But that needs to be taken into consideration, same with Princeton, same with Merritt, same with Cache Creek. We still are not back to 100%. And they also have not addressed the 5-step program that developers are going through and the cost of that. So until I think, I don't want to say, you know, I don't appreciate what they're doing, but I think this has come out of left field with hardly any consultation. You're trying to put all this on everybody else when this should be the province doing this and not us. And we are a community that is still rebuilding. And I will ask that we ask for an extension because it's unacceptable, especially when we're still trying to get DMAF funding from the federal government that hasn't even bothered to let us know anything yet. And we're trying to get ourselves out of this. So the more happy hands that they want to help us with, more than happy to get it. But I think they need to take into consideration that we're still rebuilding. I still have 2 people on my street that are still not in their homes yet. So as far as this whole thing, I think it's ill-conceived and I think it was rushed. That's just me.
Yeah, I think we're lucky because we don't have any transit-oriented areas, which add additional amounts of work for us, but we're not identified as having any of those transit areas. That could change. I don't anticipate it will, because we don't have high enough transit traffic to have a transit-oriented area. We don't have stations where 10 buses are coming for different routes. We do have to start also thinking about our new flood mapping and implementing that into the zoning bylaw as well. So that's other work that we have. We have some models around our flood plain that we have to determine what we're going to adopt and how that's going to impact the community. So, we have a strategic plan, we all have work plans, and then they just threw this extra huge amount of work on us. So this information item is just so that council and the community understand the volume of work that this downloading causes to the municipal government, and the impact it will have on other projects that we're working on, our asset management projects. We have to know that our underground infrastructure can handle infill or new development areas. We have to know all those things. So if we're anticipating, a development where it's 1 house per lot and now it's going to be 4 units per lot, how is that going to impact our flow rates and the volume and capacity of our underground infrastructure?
Where do we park these people?
On the street, but don't plow.
Yeah, but can we plow roads when everybody's on the street?
Don't collect garbage.
This is ill-conceived. Councillor Egan?
I was going to talk about the infrastructure, because especially these ones where you're talking about 3 or 4 housing units must be permitted. 4 housing units must be permitted. 6 housing units must be permitted. It's ridiculous, especially when our septic system is still damaged from the flood. You can't keep adding houses and people if, what you said was no water, no people, no town. Yeah.
Councillor Richard?
So we had a housing needs assessment done in the last few years, and I'm wondering if we can update that also with our update that we had in 2020 to the OCP. Can we just, even if we make a few improvements on what was there, because we did allow for more units in dwellings with certain setbacks and whatnot, if that was reviewed and
We don't have an option about 4 units. If the lot's big enough, you have to allow 4 units. It's not an option.
But how about
on those sites, if they want it, but we can't block it.
But how about with the setbacks that we had put in the OCP?
Doesn't matter. They have a set of standards that we have to incorporate in our zoning bylaw, which has to match our OCP.
So then, if we were to accept those with what we had and made an amendment and implement a new amenities cost charge, would that?
So, the amenities cost charge, we don't even have any document about how to assess that yet.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be getting a guiding document on how to reassess our DCC levels, which was a bylaw that we were already working on, but now we're going to pull back in because we need to go back and restart. The zoning bylaw updates right now, we're allowed to do a bit of a shortcut process, but the OCP, we have to go through the whole OCP process. So all of the community engagement part, all of the consultation with our partners, everything has to happen as per the regular OCP process.
The last time it took us, so how do they expect anybody to get all that time?
They don't care.
That's a good question, Councillor.
No, I understand.
Just do it.
I'm just,
they don't expect you to stay to sleep.
It's unattainable. It's virtually unattainable. So for me, let's just take the fine, be done with it.
Well, the other problem is that they can impose a bylaw upon us.
Good deal.
And so what council will have to accept that if we don't have a bylaw, the province can impose it whether or not council approves it or not. So we have to weigh those things. We can ask for an extension citing our individual circumstances and we are in a difficult position still. And because we don't have, there's some areas that are environmental danger zones that are not currently identified based on the new flood data. We have those things, so we may be able to get an extension. We won't be getting an extensive extension. They're very, and I don't think, it was funny because I don't think the mayor was still on the housing symposium at the time. I think he had left for TNRD, but the federal minister of housing was on the call or on the meeting, and he made a comment about federal funding, about DMAF and how great the DMAF program is, and I almost crawled through my computer to strangle him.
I'm glad I wasn't
just
there.
Like, right? Like I wanted to type in the thing and make my comment.
It's been fantastic.
Yeah, and then, you know, there's lots of talk again at the CEO forum about, you know, the need for a new funding formula, just like they're talking about at FCM, that we need capital funding formula. And you know, the government of Canada's position is that they will only do it on a grant basis because they need to know that we're going to put money the right places. They need to know that we're going to do good things with their money.
And let's not forget it's an election year, so ask your candidates what their plan is on this. Councillor Charney?
Well, we don't have a choice on these bylaws. They're mandated, so I know we have to swallow the pill sooner or later. But we've tabled this, but there is discussion of whether a lot of your housing crisis can be solved through packages A, B, and C. I don't think D, because we don't have any TOD. So a lot of your housing can be accomplished through A, B, and C without the city entering into a housing development themselves. So that, I mean, I really think that we need to have a needs assessment of the housing. Like I look at, we have 5 housing, BC housing assisted housing developments in Merritt. We have apartment buildings. We have, I don't know what those are called in Fir Hill. Those are not up to capacity in rentals. We have new rental complexes in Diamondvale that are just being built. And we have 87 houses on the market today. And so I think that we really need to do a needs assessment of what this town needs. Because as far as I've seen, I haven't seen anybody living in a trailer, living in a car that are working and they're looking for affordable housing. We, I think, are in a situation where we're different than the coast. We don't have the biggest problem that they do. And so I think the first thing we have to do is a needs assessment, and then we have to see how we can solve this problem without getting into the city actually into a housing complex themselves, entering into an agreement with housing.
Yeah, and so I think that, so again, we're not really talking about the other briefing note, although it goes together, and the idea being that housing availability does not equal affordability, right? So the concept is that if we build more houses, they'll become more affordable. That actually is not fact. Most of the housing experts in this country will tell you that building more does not make it affordable. And what we're seeing is, if you look at the definition of affordable housing in Canada, it is 30% of your take-home income. And that includes your rental or mortgage, your utilities, your taxes, and your insurance. Most people in Canada, including people in Merritt, are paying about 45% of their income, take-home income, to housing. So technically, when you're talking about houses that are posted at 500,000 or plus, in the 500, which most of them are more than $500,000 in Merritt, and people have a median income in Merritt, I think we're about 80, just under 80,000 is our median income. They actually cannot afford those houses. So houses may be available to people, but they are living poor because they're trying to find housing. Mm-hmm. Right? It's because they can't actually afford on their household income to pay for the cost of housing. We have about 3 over the next 5 years, 10 years, anticipated probably 400 accommodations coming online, so some form of housing based on the number of development processes that we're currently anticipating. The idea may not be that the city creates housing. It could be the city creates agreements to ensure that there are affordable houses in those housing developments, right? So if you have a multi-unit house or multi-unit property that has, say, 10 units, 4 of them must be affordable, and the city can subsidize that. So there are different ways for us to use housing funding to support affordable housing in the city. Developers don't want to build affordable housing because they can't make a profit off of it. Affordable housing has to be subsidized at this point. I was reading an article that said in of the 7 larger cities in Canada, and again, we're Merritt, we're not exactly the same, but in the cities of Canada, like the Lower Mainland, Victoria, houses would have to, the cost of a house would have to stay stagnant for at least 15 years, and the wages would have to go up 4% per year over those 15 years for housing to become affordable. For us to close that gap between what affordable housing is and what people are currently paying for housing. So it's a huge issue, and that's why there's a lot of work for us to do on it, because it's not being solved provincially, and it's becoming very clear they want to download this work to us. And so that's why, you know, we can schedule a COW for the other briefing note, bring it forward at a COW and have a more fulsome discussion. But ultimately what we need is more resources to even do all of this investigation, and we happen to have funds to allow us to do that at this time. However that turns out, basically what we need is a process or an opportunity to develop that process and to come up with some solutions that make the best sense for Merritt. We don't have the resources right now to do it internally.
Councillor Richard.
And we don't have the resources to do the legislative things internally.
Yeah, just adding to the CAO's point where just because housing's available doesn't mean it's affordable. I couldn't agree more. I remember when people could actually rent reasonable homes for under $1,000 a month, and I think right now you'd be lucky to find any kind of apartment in any condition for that kind of money, a small little apartment. And we don't want to become in these situations where you have these illegal suites that people have put together that are unsafe, and maybe people are overcrowded, where you find situations like in resort towns, because the housing costs are quite high here. You have a lot of working professionals that are renting that would like to buy a home that can't, because the median income now is the provincial average for what's affordable is yeah, and even
ours is lower.
And ours is lower, and the cost of houses have increased so much over the last 5 years. So I'm thinking the Merritt housing project, that if we were going to discuss it at committee of the whole, would be great, because I think other communities are doing that, and it would be nice to see. There was a project that was supposed to go, Anhart at one time had talked about a project beside the gas stations near where the hotel was, the Comfort Inn, but I never saw anything happen from there. They had done a presentation to council in 2020, and that was a project that was going to have some lower income options, and that never did happen. And I just think that we need to pursue that option.
So I pulled up some stats that I think council might find interesting. In Canada, the average income is $79,876. The average home price is $757,600. The max purchase price of a home for someone who makes that average income is $315,000. So if you're making $80,000 a year, you can only purchase a home that is $315,000. That is what you're supposed to be shooting for. That means there's a $442,000 difference between a home price and what your max purchase price should be. That's 141% higher than what you should be purchasing in a home at. It's a pretty frightening.
Councillor Cherney.
I agree with all those figures, but I want to see affordable housing is a great term to use. The one hand, the government says, yeah, community must build affordable housing. Then on this hand, they say, every new build must come up to these energy standards, which has now made that build go up like that. Contractors cannot build affordable housing. Doesn't matter how you look at it. They can't. My son just built. The price went over what he was supposed to pay. So to download onto the community to say, you must build affordable housing, who's going to be stuck with that bill? Because I don't know who can build affordable housing. If you're going to get affordable housing with the new energy standards, someone's going to cut corners somewhere. And you're going to have a building that's lopsided, falling down, leaky windows, whatever. Because it's a term that is unattainable. And everyone's buying into affordable housing. I just think that it's a big can of worms, and we need a lot of time to discuss how we as a city can approach affordable housing.
The only problem is you don't have any time.
I know. I agree, but tonight we can't solve it. I think we need to sit down as a and soon
Of course.
and go through all of these
But I'm just saying
options.
with the province's move, the way they're going, they've pulled any kind of reasonable anything. Anyway.
Can we schedule a cow for next week?
Yep. Let's
Next
do it.
Tuesday, if that's acceptable to council?
Well, just throw it out. We'll see what everybody can do.
I try to keep it on the day that your normal council meetings are on.
Okay, we're going to move on to verbal CAO report.
Give you a few updates on some departmental work. Fire chief sent me their stats for January. So for the month of January 2024, they had 91 call-outs. The same time last year, 68 call-outs. The same time the year before, 48 call-outs. So there again, the first responder, 42 this year, 38 last year, 22 the year before. So you can see that we've had a significant increase. And again, at my CAO forum last week, very big topic of conversation is the volume of extra calls that fire departments are taking because of emergency medical response and how to manage this. So we have some more discussion that we need, of research we need to do on that to ensure that we bring you a briefing note, because council had talked about perhaps billing the provincial government for our services, because again, this is a place where they're not providing adequate service at a provincial level. Not that our ambulance staff or our paramedics are not doing a great job, but they're not properly resourced number-wise, especially when we have closures of the ER and they're transporting patients to Kamloops, and we have no ambulance service in the community because of transfers. So big conversation, big discussion around that, and huge in all the communities. The call volume in all communities has risen exponentially. Sorry, I was trying to find my. Give you some departmental updates. Public Works, lots of work being done. We're doing, in cross connection, doing some facility survey assessments and inspections, working on the universal water metering project, doing some work to get the unmetered commercial properties metered. So that's upcoming. Doing some hydrant flow tests, getting parks ready, working on the seasonal plan for parks. Our apprentice for our mechanic apprentice is at level 3 school right now, so that's really great. Utilities have had 4 main breaks and 2 service line breaks since January 1st. So that's 6 breaks in our water service that our staff have had to open up the roadway or the easement for in order to get in there and make those repairs. So that's an indication about the age of our infrastructure. And the more we do this, the older our infrastructure gets, the more we do this, and why we have to really look at our capital plan and our asset management work. Call it well rehabilitation's been happening. The reservoir, some work happening up at the reservoirs. The new municipal tractors on site and put into service. So this includes a plow, a brine spray tank, a sweeper, and a concrete grinder. So that's a great multi-use tool. Like I could just whip that out of my pocket, my multi-tool. Engineering, Vote Street is coming along. We are into looking at the cost of extending the work just past the hospital driveway and adjusting the lane, the left turn lane into the hospital and creating a more safe exit there. At this point, we're slightly under budget despite all of the issues we found, like the underground services weren't where they were supposed to be based on our as-built, and the substrate layers of Vote Street were not appropriate and not well compacted. So that's why you saw a lot of the waves on there. So we've had to do some remediation on that had some extra costs. So we're just looking at those costs, hopefully extending the project, and we should still be within the allocated budget to get past the driveway. So we're expecting mid to late summer for completion, including the paving. Again, people want usable infrastructure. Sometimes it's inconvenient. The airport lease lot grading's happening. The security fence, phase 1's done. Active transportation pathway is going to be starting or working through that. Expect completion in the early summer. Off-site servicing to 286. The sewer line site is substantially completed. Continues on. Cemetery expansion. Lots of things happening. Building and planning permit stats. So January 2024, 6 residential permits were issued, 4 commercial permits, and 6 plumbing permits for a total value of $2,441,000 of development. In February to date, 3 residential permits and 2 plumbing permits. And then we have permits in progress, so projects that haven't received permitting yet. Apartment building, 3 triplex applications, 2 single-family dwellings that are going to include suites, 2 commercial renovation projects, and an institutional building, which is an addition. We have 5 multi-lot residential subdivisions that could be beginning construction in 2024. So we're looking again about plus or minus 400 dwelling units if they build to their full plan. And we're starting to see some inquiries based on that new legislation about adding suites and carriage houses and subdividing single-family lots to give them that 4-plex option. So lots of action there. Development services, finance. Again, obviously progressing the financial plan bylaw, doing year-end cleanup, getting ready for the auditors, and so that's doing a lot of prep work for the audit and managing their requests for information in advance, getting the tax rate bylaw ready. Corporate services, we're working on privacy management training for some of the staff. We've had our IT upgrade to Public Works and City Hall. One of the great ones is we have done a review of all of our Microsoft Office licenses and found some cost savings there by appropriately licensing staff at different levels. Not everybody needs the maximum suite, because not everybody uses it. So we've gone down and we've chosen different levels of licensing for different people. Upcoming projects there is the workstation inventory and asset tracking, and a further review of our IT services and how we're going to manage IT services. Recovery is very busy with a lot of projects. I want to remind council about the April 4th river event. We have been having some issues with the bridge deconstruction and have had some miscommunications with the provincial authorities, permitting authorities, and their process. But we think we mostly have it sorted. But then we had another issue today that I don't have all the details on. I just know that there was some flurry of phone calls and meetings this morning with some of our recovery staff. We had planned to start the deconstruction on the 28th of February, but now probably not start till Monday. But that's pretty much it. Yeah, and again, big things. I was at the CAO forum last week, and the big conversations were around the housing legislation, emergency medical response, and the cost to municipalities, the fact that we need a better funding model, especially for our infrastructure, and talking about, again, tax rates and infrastructure and the costs and challenges, and many communities looking at 10% plus tax rate increases over the next few years.
Councillor Egan.
Yeah, just a question on the in your development services. I was just wondering, as I heard there was some talk about speculators coming in and buying up commercial land, and do you have any of those kinds of projects that have applied for development, but nothing's really happening?
There you go.
Sorry, we're pressing it at the same time. I think we don't have enough information on that. And again, that is something that has come up in our need to determine. Again, some communities are going to things like, so people who are buying up houses and leaving them empty, some sort of taxation for vacant houses, some sort of taxation on vacant and undeveloped land with no intention of developing it right? Like, how long can you hold land before you develop it or sell it? And so what is our incentivization and decentivization approach to those things. And that's something the council will have to consider as we move forward, probably this year as we go through all of these development services bylaws anyways, is about whether you want to look at some sort of incentivization, decentivization around people who are buying up properties, whether they be residential or commercial, and not effectively using them in the city.
Okay, and then the next question would be, now it's just gone right through me.
That sounds like something else.
Yeah, it just left me.
It'll come to you.
Dang.
It's all right. Any other questions? Here it comes. See, I knew it. I knew it.
Okay,
Councilor
so, and I just wanted to know how quickly the development permits are being issued now that we've had the extra planners.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have any extra planners, right? We only have 2 planners right now. So we're posting, I think it's going out hopefully this week, we have one more term that we had filled, but then they didn't take the position.
Okay.
So we still have that term in the budget, that term position, correct, CFO? For one planner. I think we still have like a year term for a planner. So we're going to try and get that posted because we are going to need that capacity to do this work that we need to do around the legislation this year. The planning department will need that work.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I read in the last week or so is that the city is planning on getting their online applications for the development.
So the e-permitting for building license or building permits, we're ready to sign. I think we've signed the contracts, Mr. Green? Oh, okay. I understand a contract tomorrow. So once our senior planner is back from holidays, we'll be able to start building that and implementing that. What we want to do is make sure that we're ready to go. We have software that we have signed contracts for that sit idle because we signed the contract, but we're not actually ready to implement it. So we want to make sure that when we start paying for this service, that we're ready to implement it. So we're going to wait for our senior planner to come back from holiday, and then we'll be able to start building it and getting ready and rolling it out to our developers about how to do it and doing some community education and get it implemented.
Okay, well then I guess my question would be, what is the wait? What's the general wait for somebody who's waiting for a building permit?
I think it really depends on the complexity of the build.
It also depends on whether they follow the bouncing ball or they want to change something that they're not allowed to, and then they dig their heels in. That's what's been happening with a lot of these people.
It's not necessarily even the building permits that are the problem, it's the development permits that become, because those are really big projects. And when we're talking about subdividing or whatever the case may be, what we're seeing is that there is an onus on us to provide them with information that they should be providing to us rather than the other way around. Or they're providing us documents that are not really usable. So we're developing, the director has been working on developing, like, this is what we want from you. We want a technical document with all of these things in it. When we give you feedback, we want you to actually provide us written feedback, not a new drawing where we have to go back through it and figure out if you've made those changes. We want you to provide us written feedback in a technical document about how you've addressed our concerns. Because what we're getting is things that cause more work that should be done by the contract or by the consultants of the developers versus our staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we will call it an evening. Nicole?